Alright, so today we're going to talk about microphones, but before we do, I want to show off my new office. Oh, new office. There's actually nothing new about this space, but I've actually also never shown this space on these videos. And a big part of the reason why was I actually work in my basement. And so now that I've actually taken the time to like clear space out and paint, I feel great. And I highly recommend, if anyone else is working in a space like that, to just treat it like a separate space and really take care of it. It feels really great. I'm really excited to be moving into the rest of this year with a space that I really love. So that's it. That's all I got. Microphones. Okay, so today we're going to be comparing the Deity D3 Pro shotgun mic and the Takstar shotgun mic. This is the SG-598. Now the reason I want to look at these two mics is, I mean, first of all, these are the mics that I use and that I've chosen after looking at a lot of different options. So for me, these are really good mics to start with, especially if you're looking at something where you either are just looking for a vlogging setup or just need scratch audio. These are really excellent for that. They're also not too bad for doing interviews, which I've found. Before that, I primarily just used a lav mic, but these actually, you can get really good audio quality with them, so it's surprising. So I've started definitely incorporating this into my setup. When I'm doing interviews, I'll use a lav mic and I'll use a shotgun mic. And that, you know, both gets me a more fuller sound, but also gives me safety on set. So now I have two tracks that are disconnected. So normally what I would have done in the past is I would have had one track that's, you know, a high volume track from, you know, my lav mic and then a safety source. Now I'll run 4 tracks. It's the same method of using the high volume and a safety track underneath, but now I'm using 2 sources so that if there's rubbing on one of the mics, I can switch to the other mic. I have options and it gives me safety and it just sounds better. So what you're going to be listening to for a lot of this is actually the HD3 Pro. There's a really simple reason why I decided to do it this way, and a lot of it is just logistics. This is not a scientific test. This is just my opinion on these mics and who I think they might be good for. So, I mean, the main reason I'm doing it mostly on this one is because I have this nice setup, you can see, where I just have a clamp to this bar. The main reason I can do it with this mic is that it actually has a 1/4-20 at the bottom. The Takstar does not. It has a much wider setup. So what I was doing in the past when I was using this primarily is I would have a clamp on this side, a friction arm, and then a clamp to another bar. And that's how I mic'd a lot of things with this one. So let's talk about some main features of these mics. I'm not going to go into huge detail because frankly, you can look all that stuff up. So to start off with the Takstar, some of the main features are, it's this kind of condenser style shotgun mic. It's got some little buttons here to have a low end roll off, plus 10 dB, which is kind of nice. And then an on and off switch. And I gotta say, this on and off switch looks really cheap, but frankly, it is super handy. And it is probably one of the things I like most about this mic. You can just switch it on, switch it off, on, off. It's really easy to just turn it off and not kill your batteries. So one of the things I like about this mic is that it takes a single AA battery. And because I use rechargeable batteries for everything, it means that it's essentially a rechargeable mic. But if the mic dies, then I can easily just swap out a rechargeable battery and I'm good to go. Which you'll see with the D3 Pro, that's actually one of the things that annoys me is the battery. I thought I'd like it. Turns out it's kind of annoying. But just having a really simple battery setup like this is really great and really handy. Now, as you can see here, the mic cable is a hardwired cable that goes right from the mic, and then, you know, it just goes to a headphone jack, 1/8 inch, really simple, very straightforward. The shock absorber setup is on these elastics, and it's quite firm, and frankly, it doesn't remove a lot of the contact noise between the mic and the camera. I find that every time I was touching my camera, I could hear every contact that I was doing, which I think the D3 Pro does a little better job of. On the bottom, there's this mounting section here, and you'll see that it's not a 1/4-20. I'm not sure what size this is. Having a 1/4-20 option, which I don't think would be that complicated to do, makes a huge difference, and it's actually one of the things I like about the D3 Pro a little better. So why don't we take a quick second just to listen to the Takstar and see what that sounds like. I'm not going to spend time mounting this because, frankly, I don't care. Sorry. So this is the Takstar. I've got it running flat with the 10 dB boost, and you can hear that it doesn't have the same volume as the D3 Pro. It doesn't pick up the same sort of resonance, and the mics are not only are they side by side, but I actually have the Takstar a little bit closer, and frankly, listening to them side by side, I find that the D3 Pro picks up a lot more of my resonance. That being said, this mic gets the job done. Now, one of the things where this mic does really well is if you have really good preamps. So I like to run this mic through a wireless lav, and what that does is it gives me a wireless shotgun mic, which is great. But also you can use the lav mics to boost the signal. And then in doing that, you've got much better volume, you've got much better range, and it sounds like a better mic. That being said, comparing these mics side by side, you can tell that this mic is a little bit thinner, and you can tell that the sound quality of this mic is a little bit thinner. It doesn't pick up a lot of the low end range, and has a bit of a tinny sound to it. So this is the Takstar SGC-598. So before I leave the Takstar, let's listen to this mic in terms of what sounds it rejects. So if I go off axis, we don't really hear it too well. At the back axis, we don't hear very much at all. It's actually quite quiet. And then blah, 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 as we get closer. So this has a really narrow field of view for sound rejection. So it's pretty much whatever's in front of the mic gets picked up, but once you get off to the side, it starts to fall away, which is not too bad. So to be fair to the Takstar, I'm going to talk about the D3 Pro while talking into the Takstar. And so that way you can get a sense of what this mic sounds like and how good it can or cannot be. I don't know. Okay, so let's talk about the DC3 Pro for a minute. It's very similar to the Takstar in terms of the style of mic it is, but it's very different in terms of the build quality. Takstar seems to be pretty much all plastic. I'm sure it has metal in it to work properly, but ultimately it's not quite the same as the D3 Pro. The D3 Pro has a lot better features to it. The build quality seems to be all metal, but this thing feels like a small shotgun mic. I wouldn't have a problem setting this up onto an actual cinema camera for when doing documentary work. And the sound quality, I think, is a lot better than the Takstar. Now, it uses a USB-C for charging and has an internal battery. When we were talking about the battery for the Takstar earlier, this is actually one of the things where the D3 Pro mic kind of annoys me. It's really great that's an internal rechargeable battery. I think that's excellent. The problem is, if you don't charge it, it dies, and you can't swap out the battery. That's one of the reasons I like the Takstar, is I can just switch out rechargeable batteries, so I'm still using rechargeable batteries, but I can swap it out if I'm in need. Otherwise, you essentially have to power it by USB if it dies. Now, it doesn't take very long to charge it, maybe an hour for it to charge to full, maybe a little longer, but I find that putting it on the charger for 10 minutes when shooting, if I'm desperate, that'll help. For big shoots, I always charge everything beforehand, but when I'm out vlogging or doing anything like that, I don't always, and sometimes I get hit by that, and that sucks. So, and as far as battery life goes, I think the Takstar is about 72 hours, and I can't remember how much this one is. Somewhere between 60 and 100. It lasts a while, and it'll just go into standby mode where it'll use less power if it's not plugged into a source. So there's this button here, which has three purposes. One is low end roll off between 75 and 150 hertz. And then the other is, that's just your power button. And turning this on and off can be really annoying because you have to like press it in and hold it. Otherwise, you'll just be changing the roll-off scenario. So I find that sometimes if you don't press it in and hold it long enough, you won't actually turn it off and then it'll die in your camera bag. At the back here, there's this volume knob, which allows you to adjust your audio on your mic. But frankly, I don't like touching my mic while I'm recording. So I actually just leave it up at 10 and then adjust in camera. So if you can get your source as high as you can without clipping, that'll give you better audio in camera, and you can just turn down your audio in camera, and that should help to keep your noise floor lower. In terms of the shock mount, it uses a Rycote shock mount, which does a lot better of a job than the Takstar for isolating sounds. I don't hear every sound when I'm touching my camera. Sometimes, but not always. So that's really helpful. One of the things I love, which is a very small thing, is it has a 1/4-20 mount on the bottom. So I can mount it to other things like friction arms, like light stands. So if I want to make a makeshift boom pole, that's easy enough. The input cable is a 2-sided 1/8" jack. So if anything goes wrong with your cable, you can easily swap it out. You can get these pretty easily, but not only that, you can just use a longer cable if you're wanting to do a cable run to your camera. So that's a nice feature. So instead of having to use an extension cord, you could just use a longer headphone cable, and that'll do it for you. Now for sound quality, I will say that the V-Mic D3 Pro picks up better resonance on the low end through the voice throughout. And you should be able to hear that between these mics. So let's quickly take a moment to do a sound comparison between these mics. So this is the Takstar. This is the mic that I use when I need to mic that'll just get destroyed. You are currently listening to the V-Mic D3 Pro microphone. Today we're comparing shotgun microphones to see which mic works better for you and which makes sense for your budget. Today we're looking at shotgun mics to see what works for you and what works within your budget. Today we're comparing shotgun microphones to see which one makes sense for you and which works within your budget. Today we're listening to shotgun mics to see what works for you and what works within your budget. You are currently listening to the Takstar microphone. You are currently listening to the V-Mic D3 Pro microphone. You are currently listening to the Takstar microphone. You are currently listening to the V-Mic D3 Pro microphone. You are currently listening to the Takstar shotgun microphone. So let's quickly do a rejection test to see what this mic sounds like when I turn it off axis. So as I'm talking, you'll notice that it doesn't have the same rejection as the Takstar, and in fact it picks up more of the room. Now when I'm talking behind it, it still picks up a little bit, probably a lot more than the Takstar. And as I get closer, it sounds better and better and better. And then here I am. So you'll see that the rejection is not too bad offside. It still picks up some of the sound from the side, and it picks up some of the sound from the rear. But it does sound best when it's pointed right at me. So in conclusion, let's take a second and talk about who these mics are for. So price-wise, the Takstar is $22, and the V-Mic D3 Pro is $200. So I would say if you're getting started out, or if you just need a cheap shotgun mic that you can use for scratch audio, the Takstar is the better option. I mean, that's really insanely cheap for what that mic can do. It's not bad. It's not the worst thing I've ever heard. And if you run it through good preamps, it actually can sound a lot better than probably what you're hearing here. The V-Mic D3 Pro. So this mic is more for someone who needs a quality microphone, but whose camera doesn't necessarily take in XLRs. So it's great for mirrorless cameras, DSLRs, that sort of thing. Even some cinema cameras don't have XLR inputs, but you need scratch audio. So it's a really great option for that. So yeah, let me know what you think. Which mic sounded better to you? Which mic did you prefer? And what do you think makes more sense for your budget? Would you rather have something like the Takstar that is a lot cheaper, a lot easier? Or does the D3 Mic Pro make sense? Or is this one not good enough for you, you little pesky brats? If you're going to spend this much, you might as well go to something with XLR inputs, because that's definitely an option for a lot of people. So if this video has been helpful to you, give it a thumbs up. If you want to see more videos like this, hit that old subscribe button, and we'll hang out again later. All right, peace out. Also, this mic might be good for ASMR channels. I actually don't know what they prefer. Maybe I should have actually watched one of those videos before starting this comment. That would have been very less ignorant of me.